In this video, we're continuing our discussion about very early, the famous composition by a great piano player named Bill Evans. If you're not very familiar with Bill Evans' work, just Google it or YouTube it and find some recordings. Probably one of the most progressive and very thoughtful piano players of all time, especially in the jazz idiom. So if you're not that into Bill Evans, you will be maybe by the end of this tutorial or by the time you listen to some of his music. The reason why we're doing this specific tutorial is we want to start talking about not just the compositional aspects of the things that he does and the difficulty that makes for piano players, but also how do you actually get around that difficulty? How do you find ways to play over so many chords? So as you're looking at the sheet of music here very early, this is part 2 of our tutorial where I'm going to dive in and start talking a little bit more about the chords and the scales and some ideas that you can have on how to approach a piece of music like this. As you look at it, you can see that we've circled what we call the destination chords for the most part. Now there are other things, as I notice, are circled here. So let me erase that. So that's not a destination chord. But the E flat is, and then as I was explaining again in the last video, I'm kind of like circling things at random and writing other things in. But let's just make sure that just the keys of the moment are highlighted by circles. And then what I would suggest is let me play you a bit of the solo first, and then we're going to come back and continue on where we left off from the last video. So let me play that solo for you now. So as you can see, there's a lot of chords flowing by, and you really need to start covering those chords as best as possible, because if you're just doing random things, it's not going to work out very well, especially for a piece of music like this where there's a different chord in every bar. So I think the best way to approach it is to start thinking about the spelling of the chords first of all. So if you plunk down a C major 7th chord, you can play 3, 5, 7, and 9. And then when you look at the B flat 13 chord, you can play some of those notes as well. So I'm looking at, say, 4/8 notes up and then 4/8 notes down. And then E flat major 7. Let's go back to the A again, where it starts off at the beginning. And let's do it the opposite way. Let's play the chord down and then the next chord up. So what you want to do is to start mixing up going down with going up. But you've only got 4 notes, and in 3/4 time, there are 2 other eighth notes that have to act as passing notes between those arpeggios. So for example, if we go up 3, 5, 7, and 9 for C major, and then this is down for B flat, there's 2 other notes that need to go in there. And that's probably the best way to start thinking about soloing in these very difficult changes, because you're catching a lot of different chords, a lot of different keys, and you really don't want to blow by that with some random notes. Let's try it the other way now, where we're going down with the first chord and then up with the next chord and trying to figure out passing notes. Probably good when you're just starting to learn this song and improvising on it. It's a good idea to play out of time. So you notice I'm not doing. I'm playing out of time, just trying to figure out the chords. And what I did there was you play lines from the scale. So for example, when I got to the G13 chord, so a combination of going up the arpeggio, down the arpeggio, with passing notes. And mixing in a couple of scales along the way. And I personally think that that's the best way to start this difficult piece in the beginning. Now, obviously, you have a lot of experience with other chords from other standards and things, and you can pull those licks and things over. But it's not the kind of song where you want to do a lot of like bluesy type things. It just is a little out of place. For example, it just doesn't really lend itself to that. It's just going through too many keys, so it doesn't have that sort of blues feel. Now that's a whole different idiom and sound, but it doesn't really translate into a piece of music like this. If the chords don't necessarily fall beneath your fingers initially and you're sort of searching for chord voicings, what I would recommend is, let me post a link to a video up here where I talk about how to play left-hand chord voicings underneath soloing in the right hand. So it's these patterns that you use. And over time, you can start to filter in force and things like that. So please check that video out next. I'll post it at the end of this as well, so that you can go look at that. I would say that very early is something that you're going to want to get up very early for. It is going to take you a while. I remember the first time I learned it, and I've learned it several times over the years because I forget things. But essentially, it is a very fantastic exercise for the fingers. I would suggest that you do it as many times as possible until it falls underneath your fingers, and then it's just going to make so many other pieces of music easier. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions or comments, just post them below, and I hope to see you in another video.